guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I am doing another true crime video, and the case we're going to be talking about today is one that I find to be so frustrating. There's so many mistakes involved. There's so many weird, unexplained events that happened. I think you guys are going to be really baffled by this and probably have a wide range of theories as to what happened. Today we're going to be talking about Mitrice Richardson. Mitrice LaVaughn Richardson was born on April 30th, 1985 in Los Angeles. Her parents are Latice Sutton and Michael Richardson. She was raised by her mother and her stepfather in Covina, California. And like many of the victims that I talk about, Mitrice was a really good person who was very well loved by people around her. She was a Gemini, and that might not mean anything to some of you, but to me it tells me a lot. She was very, very smart, very curious, very talkative and inquisitive, and she was actually described as being someone who was extremely deep to talk to, very introspective, and just someone who questioned everything. The type of person I love having conversations with. Friends and family actually describe her as being an extremely wise person, and she kind of always had a plan for what she was going to do with her life. She also was involved in activities such as dance and cheerleading. She did competitions. She was very, very good, actually. She was also very well behaved, always seemed to be doing the right thing, and she was very kind to others. She didn't like bully other people. She was a very nice and, like I said, well-liked person. She attended Cal State Fullerton, which is a university in Los Angeles that's only about 20 minutes from where she grew up, and during her time there she studied psychology and really succeeded in her program. And college was a very transformative time for her. She felt like she finally found her true self, and she decided to actually come out to her parents that she was lesbian. And luckily she had a great response. They were proud of her either way. They were very supportive of her, and this really allowed her to embrace her true self. In May of 2009, Mitrice graduated from college and wanted to continue her passion for psychology. She had plans to apply to graduate school and actually get her doctorate in child psychology, so she was very serious about her career and her future. But Mitrice definitely had a fun side to her. It's really interesting. She had a very professional side, and she had a really kind of wild, fun side, and this to me just screams Gemini. She also became a go-go dancer in college on Friday nights. Not a stripper, she just danced like up on a stage, kind of get the crowd hyped up. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. She absolutely loved to dance and to party and to have fun, so this was the perfect environment for her, and she truly loved that job. After graduating, Mitrice actually moved to an area outside of Los Angeles called Watts, California, to move in with her great-grandmother Mildred. She was living by herself, and she was 91, so that's really dangerous, and Mitrice wanted to go and take care of her. That's just the kind of person she was. So living with Mildred was going pretty well. They had dinner together every Wednesday night. It was kind of their thing, except for September 16th, 2009. Mitrice told Mildred that she wasn't going to be able to have dinner with her that night, but they both agreed this wasn't a big deal and they would just reschedule for another time, and instead they just spent a little while catching up in the house before Mitrice left for whatever other plans she had that night. And she left the house around 5 p.m. She was actually planning on going to the beach, so she ended up driving 40 miles to Malibu. She got there around 7 p.m. and she went to a really nice restaurant there called Joffrey's. So she pulled into the restaurant. The valet guy told her that they only do valet parking. You couldn't just park yourself. So he had to go park the person in front of her, and then he would be right back to park her car. So he went and did that, and then he got back and Mitrice was sitting inside of his personal car, which was super, super weird. He was like, "Yo, dude, why are you in my car?" And I guess she basically responded a string of words that didn't even form a sentence and made no sense. So the valet guy told her to get out of the car and escorted her into the restaurant where she was seated by a hostess. And this is when she proceeded to order a cocktail and a $60 steak. So she was having quite the night by herself. So while she was eating, she noticed another group of people that were sitting there, and it looked like they were having a fun time. So she decided to just pull up a chair, which is kind of a strange thing to do at a fancy restaurant. I'm sure they thought this was super weird, but she just pulled up a chair and said like, hey, can I join you guys? And they were like, sure. So they started talking to her, and this ends up being super, super important because they were able to report how she was talking, and it matches up with what the valet guy said. She was not making any sense. She started saying things like, Mother Nature is my mother, and they asked her where she was from, and she said she was from Mars, and some other stuff. She said she wanted to avenge the death of Michael Jackson. So she was all over the place and clearly not in her normal state of mind at all. So eventually that group got their check and they left the restaurant, and Mitrice left the restaurant shortly after them, but as she was walking away, she heard the manager of the restaurant calling her name, and it turns out she had not paid her bill, which was a lot. At first, she tried to say that her friends paid it, like the other people that she kind of crashed in on their dinner, but the manager was like, no, you need to pay this, and how are you going to do it? So the manager could tell something was kind of off with her, so he asked if he could have someone's phone number to call and get a credit card number and, you know, settle the bill. So she gave her great grandmother's telephone number, and they called and told her the situation, and Mildred was so confused. I mean, she's 91 years old, and they said that unless she came down there and signed it or faxed over a signature, they would not be able to settle the bill. And she's 91, like she's not going anywhere, and she didn't even own a fax machine. Also, it was almost 10 p.m. at this point, so she really should have called her mom, which is strange. At this point, other people in the restaurant and even employees were offering to pay her bill, but the manager was concerned about her well-being. He could tell she was like on something or something like that, so he called the police.
Lawsville Sheriff Station Deputy SunRaeLove, how can I help you?
Hi, I'm calling from Joffrey's restaurant in Malibu.
Yeah.
We have a guest here who is refusing to pay her bill, and we think she sounds really crazy. She may be on drugs or something. We are wondering if someone can come by and pick her up.
Okay, well, what's the address there?
It's 27400 Pacific Coast Highway.
And is she a white, black, Asian, Hispanic?
She's a young black girl. She's probably in her 20s.
Okay, what's she wearing?
She's wearing a black T-shirt and I think blue jeans.
Is she with anybody else?
No, it's just her.
To have them deal with her. So I guess when the police showed up, she was acting pretty weird around them. She started to seem nervous, and they were just trying to keep her calm. They asked how much she drank that night. She said not very much, and they took her outside to do a sobriety test on her to see if she could drive or not. And this is when they determined that she was sober. And then they asked her if there was any way that she could just pay this bill. This is when she said, maybe I left my wallet in the car, and she asked them to go and look for it for her. So they went and looked for the wallet, and they didn't find it, but they did find some Mary Jane in the center console, if you know what I mean. Gotta be really like that these days with YouTube. So because of this, they decided to arrest her. She was taken to the Lost Hills station, which is about 15 miles away from the restaurant, and her car was towed to a nearby lot near the restaurant. So Mildred gets concerned, and she makes a phone call to Mitrice's mom, Lettice, and tells her what's going on. So she ended up calling the restaurant herself, and this is when the manager informed her of what happened, that she didn't pay this bill, and they ended up calling the police because no one could pay it for her, and she was in their custody. By hearing the way she was acting over the phone, Lettice figured that her daughter was probably drunk or something. But the thing is she was never known to be a big drinker, and she also had never been in trouble with the law at any other point in her life. So her mom didn't know quite what to do, because at this point it's really late. It's like midnight, and she lives 60 miles away from the police station, and she also has another 10-year-old daughter at home that she can't just leave. So this is when she called the police station to ask if they were planning to release her tonight or tomorrow morning, like what's going on, and they said that they would be releasing her in the morning, because Lettice emphasized that she was really worried that if she left in the middle of the night, if she was just released, that she could get hurt, she could get in trouble, and it's pretty crazy what she actually said.
I am calling. I'm a little frazzled right now. I understand my daughter is being brought into the station. Mitrice Richardson, have they made it to the station yet, and she's been booked?
Okay, do you know where she's coming from?
It's some restaurant out in Malibu, and I didn't even think to get the name. The manager's name is...
The only place we have somebody that's in custody that they just announced on the radio that they're coming up is from Joffrey's in Pacific Coast Highway. It's the only female that's being brought up to the station as we speak. They actually just put it on the radio right before you called.
Okay. I'm her mother, and are you guys going to book her and then release her on her own recognizance tonight, because it's dark, she doesn't have a car, and I don't want her wandering out. I'm totally just taken aback because this is so out of character for her. Yeah. And you'll see when she comes in, she's well spoken. I think the only way I will come and get her tonight is if you guys are going to release her tonight.
Yeah.
If she's going to be held in custody for some type of arraignment tomorrow, then I will wait until tomorrow. She definitely has no place, I mean, she's not from that area, and I would hate to wake up to a morning report, girl lost somewhere with her head chopped off, so I guess I would have to come and get her. Oh, my God.
Yeah, we're in the Greenwood Hills. The only thing is, at least in the station here, she will be separated, so nobody's going to be with her. So at least that's, the plus thing, so you don't have to worry about her safety.
No, I feel safe with her being in custody. It's being released that I'm worried about. It's crazy out here. All righty. Well, then I will more than likely call and touch bases with you guys a little bit later.
And she'll call you as soon as she comes in, too.
So as you could hear in that call, police said that they were planning to keep her overnight. So hours went by and it was 5 a.m. the next morning, and Mitrice still had not gotten a call from her daughter or the police station. So she decided to call them and see what was going on. And this is when they told her that they ended up actually releasing her at 12:30. So obviously her mom was absolutely enraged. I mean, they promised that they wouldn't do that like 30 minutes before or something like that. It's just honestly ridiculous that that happened. They basically said that because she had a clean criminal record and she was sober, there was no reason to keep her there. When they released her, they told her that she could, call someone for a ride, but she didn't. And they never even offered her a ride, which is just so irresponsible. They knew that the towing place was 15 minutes from there, so her car was nowhere near her, and it's really, really dark at night. According to the sheriff's office, they said they really encouraged her to stay there, but she said she had friends to meet up with, which made no sense because it was the middle of the night and none of her friends would have known that she was in jail. So she left the police station with just her ID and keys. The area surrounding this station was very dark and kind of deserted, so it was really not a good idea for her to be walking around that area. Her mom said she thought it was just wild that she actually left because she said that was so out of character for her. Her daughter was super, super safe and wouldn't have just wandered off in the middle of the night like that. And obviously her mom was really mad at the station now because she clearly told them not to let her go home. And they did anyway. They just completely disregarded her. Apparently, she did try to call Mildred 4 times when she was in jail, and Mildred said she had no idea. But it's just weird that she never called her mom. So her mom ended up calling back to the police station and asking how long it could be until they filed a missing persons report. And they should be doing that right away, but they told her to wait. They wanted to wait 24 hours actually because, she was just released a few hours ago.
Yes, hi, my name is Mitrice, and I called not too long ago regarding my daughter, Mitrice Richardson. How long before a missing persons report can be filed? Is it 24 or 48 hours?
That's normal. Well, it depends on the circumstances, but I didn't take your call, so I'm not familiar with it. Did she just not return home after going out?
She was arrested last night. This is the first time she's been arrested. She's in an unknown area that she's never been in. She's without a vehicle. Nobody can find her.
And where was this at? Where was she arrested at?
Your facility. Her name is Mitrice Richardson.
Okay. Do you know if she's here now, or was she released?
They said she was released.
Okay, and what time was she released?
At just shortly after 12 a.m.
Yeah, normally I wouldn't recommend doing one that soon.
Right. What is the time frame?
I guess probably 24 hours would be reasonable. I mean, if there would be some mitigating factors, where you would suspect maybe something, not right.
She doesn't know the area. She's never been in your area before.
Where does she live?
She is unfamiliar with that area.
Do you think she possibly could have gotten a bus home?
No. Listen, my child has never ridden a bus.
Okay.
No.
Right.
She would not know how to ride a bus.
I would probably wait till, early this morning, and if she doesn't turn up, you can certainly call. I don't suspect anything bad happened.
I'm concerned because, well, first of all, I thought they were going to keep her overnight because she was highly intoxicated.
About an hour later at 6:30, the station got a call from someone in Calabasas. The place that they called from was about 6 to 8 miles from the police station, and this area was actually known to be mainly ranchers living there and people who owned a lot of land. This person that called was a rancher himself, and he said that he woke up, he looked outside, and he saw a woman just sitting in his yard hanging out.
Yeah, hi. Hey, this is Smith at Cold Canyon. We had a prowler walking around through the backyard here, but we don't know what the situation was. I don't know if you had a unit in the area. It might do a little drive-by or something.
Okay, where's this at?
This is Cold Canyon, like hot and cold in Molinito. But it's in the back of the house, which is right where Wood Bluff hits Cold Canyon. We just had a strange woman walking through the backyard here. It's a fairly large property, and she was sitting on the steps right on the back of the house here. This is kind of a circular driveway, and the gates were closed, so we don't know where this woman came from.
You said the cross was Wood Bluff?
Yeah, that's right. There's a horse trail, hiking trail access through here, but we've never had this kind of thing happen before. She was sitting kind of sprawled out on these wooden steps in the back of the house, right against the back of the house.
She's since got up and left?
She's since gone, yeah. She's been gone about 5 minutes now, but as we thought it over, we thought maybe a little drive-by wouldn't be a bad idea. I said to her, I hollered down, "Are you all right?" And she said, "I'm just resting," or something like that. But she's certainly gone out of her way to get that close to the house, because the hiking trail is not that close. It's on the ridge.
All right, well, since we haven't checked the area for her.
Appreciate that very much.
Not a problem, sir.
Thank you.
He described her to look a lot like Mitrice, so they went to search the area. And they weren't there very long because they found absolutely nothing, and they called off that search. Neighbors also said that they heard a voice in the tennis courts of the rancher's home, so she probably was there. And others said that they saw her trying to enter the rancher's home, or maybe leaving the rancher's home. Neighbors also said that they heard screaming coming from a vacant house very close by, and it was right around the time that she first went missing. So later that night, it had almost been 24 hours, it was 6 p.m., and Mitrice and her friend went to the police station to file a missing persons report. And this is when they told her about that rancher calling in, reporting to have possibly seen her. And this was 12 hours after he called. So she's like, what the hell? Why wouldn't you guys tell me this right away? And she's already starting to feel a lack of support from the police. So Mitrice ended up going to the exact same area herself to go look around for her. And as she was driving around, she realized that this area of Calabasas is very hilly and almost mountainous. And I'm pretty sure that I've driven through this exact area in Calabasas before, because I'm pretty sure I know what they're talking about. But she thought that, it'd be really, really hard for Mitrice to have left the jail and just wandered all the way to that rancher's house on her own, because the terrain was so hilly and difficult. She said if she was really there, she must have gotten a ride from someone. So there are a couple warning signs in her behavior before she left that the family found kind of weird. First of all, she was sending them really weird text messages, such as, "Now do you know what I want to be when I grow up? Miss Mother Nature, cause Miss America is a fake ass joke along with everything else we see." And then one of her aunts said that the day before she went missing, she came to her house and she took a stack of her own go-go dancing business cards and she hid them all around her aunt's house, like almost like a scavenger hunt, Easter egg hunt type thing. And then she left a note on her uncle's windshield that said, "Black women scorned." So by the 20th, there still was no clues and no sign of Mitrice. So the case ended up getting transferred to LAPD because that's actually where she was from. So they decided to go do a search on that rancher's house who claimed that she was just chilling in his backyard. And sure enough, dogs picked up her scent in the yard, and that way they were able to determine that that really was her in the yard that day. The dog ended up following her scent from that house to the house next to them, and then it just trails off. They also found footprints that they believe were hers, but they eventually just stopped and didn't lead anywhere either. So they're still stuck with pretty much nothing. So next, law enforcement enforcement officers decided to go to where her car was at that towing lot and check the car, see what was in it. You'd think they would do this like right away, but when they did, they found a bunch of her journals, and her journals were filled with a bunch of nonsense, and there was a bunch of writing, just tons and tons of random stuff. And she was also making Facebook and MySpace posts, like a lot of them, the day before she went missing. There was so much journal writing and so many social media posts that they basically determined that she probably had gotten no sleep the night before. They also found her cell phone and wallet in the car, which were just overlooked by the police the first time they looked, which is really. I find it interesting they were able to find the shake that was in her center console, but weren't able to find her cell phone and wallet. Inside her wallet, she had her debit card, which had over $2,000 on the account, so she definitely could have paid for her dinner. So then one of the LAPD psychologists looked at, her behavior beforehand, how she was acting, her posting all these things and the gibberish, and determined that she was probably experiencing bipolar disorder. Her mom wanted to see how she was acting that night when she was let out of the police station. So they asked the police station if they had any footage of her, and they said no. They said their cameras only are for monitoring. They don't actually even record, which seems weird at the police station. So her family was getting really frustrated with the police at this point, very fairly so. They really weren't handling this properly, and not to mention that it's their fault that she was even gone because they decided to let her out. I mean, let's be real. If it was like a famous person, they would have not let them go, especially when her mom calls and begs them not to. So her family decided to hire a lawyer because they didn't feel like the police were treating them fairly. So her lawyer had a press conference, and during the press conference, he called the police out and he said, if this was a rich white woman, you guys would not have released her in the middle of the night.
Mitrice Richardson was picked up by the LA County Sheriff Department, taken to the Lost Hills Sheriff Station, and at 12:30 at night, released in total darkness, without keys, without a car, without identification, without money. And since that night, up until today, she has been missing. This should not have happened. And the LA County Sheriff Department was grossly negligent. And the officers on that shift, grossly negligent in allowing her to leave and walk out without any form of communication with her family or friends. I will submit to you that if Mitrice Richardson's name was Lindsay Lohan or Britney Spears, she would not have been afforded the same treatment.
A few days after this, they finally got a hold of records that the police station was withholding from them for whatever reason, but they were able to see that when Mitrice left, she had no cognitive issues and they thought that she was sober. The report didn't say anything about them being concerned about her behavior or well-being. So fast forward a little bit to January of 2010, and at this point, the relationship between Mitrice's family and the LAPD was really rocky and just getting worse and worse by the day. One day, Latice was meeting with the detectives and she found out that they actually did have footage of Mitrice the night that she was in jail. They just didn't have outside camera footage. They had inside camera footage though. So at this point, nothing had been done. It had been 4 months since she first went missing and there was still no sign of her. So they decided to form a huge search party. On January 9th, they went out looking for her all over this area.
Such big, huge homes up here that they're completely fenced off and you can't get into the proper. Correct. So she's stuck on the streets or she's stuck into areas that she can get onto horse trails. Okay. The second area where I'm focusing is if there's foul play involved. Right. If there's foul play involved, someone picked her up and could have possibly disposed of her up on one of these hillside roads. Sure. But the problem is with these roads is once you get out of your car and look, the cliff goes 100 feet. So what I'm gonna have people focus on is every turnout, search 25 yards this way, 25 yards this way, look over that and look for any signs, broken branches, broken twigs, smashed bushes, anything that shows that something could have went over and caused something to break that. You see an area off the side of a road that has all these broken branches and you feel something went over and caused those branches to be broken, and a reason why you think we should look there further, you're gonna take a piece of this orange tape and you tag a pole or a branch nearby and mark it on the team leader's map. No, yeah, no. That's why she said, bring this, because we were...
Chipper, into the back of the...
And unfortunately, the search brought nothing to the table. So 3 weeks after this, Mitrice's dad was in Las Vegas, and he claims that he was sitting at a traffic light and he saw Mitrice cross the street in front of him. He thinks that she was working as a prostitute, so he jumped out of his car, started yelling her name, tried to find her, but it was too late. She was already lost in the crowd apparently. So after examining the footage a lot, the police noticed that the footage actually showed that right when she was being released, another deputy came out of the building out of a different door. They feel like they probably crossed paths and they wanted to know who this deputy was, but he was left nameless. According to the police, he was there just to drop someone off after a traffic stop, and he, after that, did another traffic stop 20 minutes after he left, so he couldn't have had any involvement with Mitrice. Plus, you think about the fact that that one witness saw her in his backyard, and that's backed up by the dog, so she couldn't have been with the officer. It just wouldn't have made sense. A few more months had passed and there was pretty much no movement on this case, so Letice was finally pretty fed up.
Tonight we are looking for answers in the disappearance of a beautiful California beauty queen. Where is Mitrice Richardson? Her 25th birthday has come and gone during the 8 months since she vanished straight into thin air. Are cops any closer to finding this beautiful young woman? Tonight I will talk to Mitrice's devastated mom, as well as powerful California Congresswoman Maxine Waters. Now, she says Mitrice's civil rights were violated, and she wants the Justice Department to take over this case.
Specifically told the deputy, this is uncharacteristic of my daughter. My daughter does not go places and not pay a tab. I continuously reiterate it. Something is wrong with my daughter. She appears to be in a crisis state.
Every day I wake up with the thoughts of Mitrice and where is she? I go throughout my day wondering, where is she? I go to bed at night wondering, where is she? My thoughts wake me up out of my sleep wondering, where is my baby? And I find myself constantly looking for different methods to find my baby.
Not up to the deputies to make the 5150. When several witnesses say the same thing, expressing behavioral pattern, they're to take her to the nearest facility for evaluation where a clinician can make that evaluation to see if they're a danger to themselves.
We do know that looking back through her family lines, now that we really have to look into it, there is a history of mental depression in both sides of the family.
So on Saturday, June 26th, she announced that she was going to be filing 6 different claims against LA Sheriff's Department. 2 of those claims were for negligence and wrongful death. And the police station denied that any of these claims were true. And shortly after she made this announcement, another clue actually came forward. One of her friends from high school, someone that she wasn't super close with but knew of her, said that he was in Vegas and he was at a casino and he saw her standing in the casino with him, and he called out to her, you know, Mitrice, and she just turned around and booked it. So a month later, LAPD ended up going to Vegas themselves to look for her, and when they got down there, they talked to over 70 people who believe they had seen her.
Well, authorities say that they have talked to dozens of people who believe they may have seen 25-year-old Mitrice Richardson in the Las Vegas area. Her father, in fact, says that he thinks he saw her as far back as January. The latest credible sighting, according to authorities, was in June when a former classmate of hers says that he spotted her at the Rio Hotel. He says he went up to her, called her by name, she looked at him and just walked away. Now, since authorities had a news conference earlier this week talking about the fact that she may be in the Las Vegas area, I'm told that they have gotten about half a dozen pretty solid leads that they're following up on. So there does appear to be some hope in this case.
Well, let's go to Michael Richardson. He is Mitrice Richardson's father, who joins us now. You saw her, though. You believe you saw her back in Vegas months ago, right?
Yeah, that's why I'm really frustrated at LAPD right now. Words cannot explain my frustration. Me as the biological father not only went by striking resemblance of this young lady, but body mechanics that this woman displayed when I saw her, the way she walked, just made me almost get hit by a car. I reported this to LAPD months ago, and 6 months later, someone that hasn't even seen her in 10 years say, it looks like her. Thank God for him. I'm more appreciative of him. But then they're now jumping out of helicopters and airplanes, and it just happened to be, ironically, 2 days after a lawsuit for wrongful release and gross negligence is filed. I'm just not happy with that.
So it felt kind of promising, but they ended up finding no clues, and it really didn't lead to anything. So then on Sunday, August 9th at around 1 p.m., some Malibu state rangers were hiking down Dark Canyon. This is only a few miles away from where she was thought to have been last seen in that person's backyard. And Dark Canyon was something pretty dangerous that most people didn't even know about. It's not something you would just stumble upon. You would definitely know it's there and go find it. They were down there because a little while before there had been an illegal grow in that area, and they went to go check out the scene. But when they got there, they found something pretty awful. One of them spotted a human skull. So obviously police came to the scene and they found out that this was a woman with dark curly hair and that her clothes were found in a nearby bush.
We have learned that there have been remains found, and I have learned firsthand today from the coroner's office that there were clothing found near those remains. It is unfortunate that they will not let me view those articles of clothing. I do appeal to the coroner's office if they would please allow me to see those clothing articles, because I know what my daughter was wearing. We do know, and I do know firsthand, that they indicated that Levi's were found. I do know that my daughter was wearing jeans. I must be very honest, it was not law enforcement who notified me of the remains. It's very committed journalists who made me aware of the findings. What tells me that my baby is not running around in Las Vegas. My spirit tells me that Mitrice was last seen in the Montanito area, and that is where we should continue our focus. I poured my life into Mitrice, and under no circumstances do I want my daughter dead. It's been reported that I am wishing for my daughter to be dead. How absurd is that? I would give my very life for her. So I want to make that very clear right now. No one wants her home more than me. This is my future. I built her to be all that she can be.
You know, I believe until the final end. And I've made several phone calls since I've been here, and I sent out news waves and say this is the 12th round, and I'm waiting to throw my glove up, and I've been losing all these battles, and right now I just threw that glove up right now, and we got to go to another round. So I'm so relieved. I'm so relieved. And I've been staying very focused. I've been staying very positive. I have a great deal of an amount of support. And, you know, that's what I'm hoping. I know what I saw. I wasn't assuming. I just wasn't anxious when I was in Las Vegas in January. I hate the sheriff didn't move on that possible sighting that I thought I seen. I spent 5 days in Vegas last week with my family and friends. And this one particular child is an exact... This woman looks so much like Mitrice, and now that everybody's looking for her, she seems to move.
And by Thursday, August 12th, it was announced that this was indeed Mitrice Richardson, which her mom from the beginning felt like she was gone. She said her light stopped shining. And I've heard this so many times. I've covered so many cases where moms say, I think they're gone, or I just had a feeling that they're gone before they actually find out. And I think that's really interesting because her father had more of an optimistic approach, and he, thought he even saw her, but her mom all along felt like she was gone. And based on her dental records, they were able to determine that she had been there at least 6 months, if not the entire time she had been missing, which is the likely scenario. So 2 days after this independent review board looked at this case and released a statement. They basically said that the officers in this case acted as they should have, that they did nothing wrong in this whole situation, which was pretty shocking. They said that they don't think that deputy that was seen leaving had anything to do with her disappearance, and they also said that them keeping the footage from her mom was normal. It was a normal amount of time to get someone footage. Even though this report came out, there were still a lot of questions that people had, like her family and the public. One of them being, did that officer ever talk to her? Like, what was his story? Did he see her? Like, why is it so secretive about him? Also, people were really critical of the fact that the police actually decided to remove Mitrice's body, her bones, remains from the scene before they were able to even investigate it and determine how it was in its natural form, untouched. And they basically said that it was getting dark and they wanted to make sure that an animal didn't come and get her remains, which made no sense because her remains had been there for at least 6 months. I mean, if it hasn't happened yet, it's probably not gonna happen tonight. It's very strange. And the deputies said that they had permission from the coroner to move the body, but this turned out to be a lie as well. The coroner said that he actually gave them specific instructions to leave the body there. So when the coroner's report came back, it said that this death was not a homicide because there was no like damage to her bones or any proof that any foul play had happened. So the death was still undetermined. But despite this, her mom truly believes that something happened to her, that there was foul play involved. I mean, the fact that she was naked when she was found is hugely telling because it's not like she just randomly got naked and then laid on the ground naked and died. That makes no sense. Maybe she was assaulted before she was killed. That would make more sense. She also felt like there was no way her daughter could have hiked all the way up there by herself. So Lettice ended up hiring an anthropologist to take a second look at the case and her remains, and the anthropologist looked at the remains, looked at this crime scene site, and immediately said that she felt like authorities had mishandled this entire case. She argued that on top of everything else that they messed up on, they also didn't send her clothes to any type of crime lab to be checked for like DNA. I mean, it's just what you do. This is easy stuff. It doesn't seem like it should be that hard for them to know to test a major murder case for DNA on her clothes. It's so odd. So because of the pushback they were receiving, the police decided to exhume her body, dig her up, and take a second look. And after this second look, it turned out to be pointless because they still decided her death was undetermined. So Mitrice's family has filed several lawsuits against the sheriff's department for letting her out early. During the lawsuit, they argued that some of the deputies that showed up to the restaurant that night knew how strange her behavior was and still chose to let her leave that night. And because of this, her parents ended up winning and they were rewarded with $900,000 in 2011 from the LA County Sheriff's Department. The county has still not acknowledged their wrongdoing in the situation. They still claim they did nothing wrong. However, they did say they would reevaluate their procedures, which is pretty disappointing. This one is just horrible. This might be one of the worst, I don't know, there's a lot of bad police work out there. There's a lot of good police work too, don't get me wrong, but this is just outrageous, honestly. So Mitrice's case is still open. It's still under investigation. We may never know what happened to her. I am so curious what you guys think could have happened because I've run through like a couple scenarios in my mind, and one of the things that I was thinking is maybe since her mindset was all messed up and she seemed to be confused about reality, that maybe when she was let go from the police station, she somehow confused it in her head with escaping and thought that she was on the run from the police. Maybe she ran into a neighbor's yard or, you know, was hiding back there, and that's why maybe when he changed window views, maybe she thought he was gonna call the police and she ran. Maybe she ended up with the wrong person. Maybe she just ended up somehow running up to that valley thinking that it was a safe place to hide from the police maybe, and then just died there. But that doesn't make sense because of her clothes. But her behavior is so weird. Could she have just taken her clothes off? I have a feeling that at some point along the way, someone came across her and realized that she was in a strange mental space and decided to take advantage of that and did something to her. But I really don't know. So let me know what you guys think down below. But that's it for me today, guys. I hope you're having a good day. Stay safe, and I will talk to you next time.